I was very pleased today to see that Boris won the parliamentary election for leadership of the party by a majority of 2 to 1. It's about 67% to 33% or thereabouts. So it was a convincing win. He had a huge degree of support, not just from MPs, but also from the Conservative Party right around the country. So he has got that legitimacy that comes from a big majority. And I think that what he needs to do is to make sure that all MPs understand that their constituents, their members in the Conservative associations right around the country voted for him, and that they trust him to deliver Brexit, because Brexit was the big issue of the leadership campaign. So far as the EU is concerned, I think that really the only way that we can approach this is to say, look, the withdrawal agreement that the UK struck with the European Union is dead. It can't be resurrected. It's been rejected 3 times by the House of Commons, and there is no way that it's ever going to get through. So the European Union has got to understand that just as much as it was necessary for our last Prime Minister, Mrs May, to understand it. And I think that once the EU understand that it will not pass through the House of Commons, the EU then has got to take the decision whether it wants to have some form of withdrawal agreement, a different one with the UK, or whether it is agreeing that we must simply leave on the 31st of October.
But do you think that the EU will really accept to review the plans? Because today I have heard that the first Vice President of the European Commission, so Frans Timmermans, has repeated again that EU has no plans to make any concessions. So they seem to, they don't want to reopen the existing withdrawal agreement. So do you think that Boris Johnson will find the appropriate leverage?
Well, I think that the leverage that he's got is this. He's made it clear throughout his leadership campaign that if necessary, the UK will leave the European Union without a withdrawal agreement on the 31st of October. Now, ideally, we would like a withdrawal agreement. We would like to have a deal with the European Union.
Yes.
It would be in our interest to do so, but not at any price. And
Yes.
similarly, the European Union has got to understand that the UK, once we've left the European Union, will be the biggest customer for European manufactured goods. The EU has currently got a surplus of about €100 billion per annum with the UK. So really, they've got to understand the impact that there would be upon EU manufacturers if we were to leave without a deal. And not just manufacturers. For example, EU agriculturists rely to a great extent upon the British market.
Yes.
And I don't think that the EU would want to see tariffs imposed upon food that they export
Yes.
to the UK, or on cars that they support to the UK,
Yes.
any more than we would like to see the reverse. So ultimately, I think that both sides have got to realise that we've got to have a sensible agreement. What we've got at the moment is not acceptable.
Yes.
So it's got to be something different. You say that they're owed to the EU, but there is an argument as to whether
you're
the
right.
UK owes it.
Yeah.
In fact, the House of Lords EU Finance Subcommittee looked at this issue of how much the UK owed to the European Union. And they took very expert advice from academics and from lawyers. And the conclusion that they came to was that actually the UK didn't owe anything at all to the European
Yes,
Union.
exactly, yeah.
Now, that's not to say that we're not prepared to offer some money to the European Union with a view to getting an agreement, but they can't expect us to give a minimum of £39 billion
For nothing.
for nothing at all.
Yes,
There has got
yes.
to be some quid pro quo.
Yeah.
The Irish issue is a problem. We want, whether or not we leave with an agreement, to ensure that there is free passage across the Irish border. Now, I can understand that the European Union would be concerned about that because it's going to be a land border between the UK and the European Union, and they want to make sure that the integrity of the single market and the customs union is preserved. We've looked at this, and in fact we had a commission on alternative arrangements to physical barriers.
Yes.
And we came to the conclusion that it's quite possible using technological solutions that are available now. We're not talking about something that's in the distant future. This is available now. Number plate recognition technology combined with trusted trader schemes, checks on goods away from the border, should enable the border to remain invisible so far as people going backwards and forwards are concerned. But that, of course, again, requires the cooperation of the European Union.
Yes.
And I think that they have to understand that the impact upon Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, of there being a departure without an agreement would be very severe. The UK is easily the Irish Republic's biggest customer for most things, particularly agricultural produce. And there would be an impact that has been variously estimated at 3% to 7% of GDP if we left without a deal. So again, there is every incentive in terms of common sense for there to be an agreement between the EU and the Irish Republic, and of course with the European Union.
When you say 3 to 7% of GDP, is it short term?
Well, no, that would be fairly lengthy because the British market, of course, would be less accessible to the Irish. It's very hard to see how they can replace it because we're immediately next door. Yeah. Most of the trade that goes to the continent from Ireland, of course, passes through the United Kingdom. So we're going to have to put practical measures in place.
Yes.
I actually believe that the European Union, when the UK has left the EU, will understand that they need to be on good terms with us.
Yes.
We certainly want to be on good terms with the EU.
Yes.
And I think that we've passed the point now where, frankly, they're upset with the fact that we're leaving. I think that the EU now recognises that we're going,
It's a fact.
and that they have to come to terms with us for a good, friendly relationship. I think that it came as a huge shock to Brussels that the UK voted to leave the EU. I think that they'd been told that the UK would want to stay because it was in our interests. But I think the fact that an important member state such as the UK is leaving has caused the most almighty shock in Brussels. And I think that there is a concern that if the UK goes, then other countries may well wish to leave as well. I think that there are a lot of countries which are very concerned about the way that the EU is actually travelling at the moment. There's no doubt that the new president of the European Commission wants to deepen the relationships between the EU member states. She says that she wants a federal Europe. That's what she's aiming at.
Which is not really possible because when you see all the differences of cultures, of viewpoints, of...
But there are a large number of people in the Commission who actually think that a
Yes.
federal Europe would be a good idea.
Yes.
And I think that the problem is that they want to try to demonstrate that to leave the European Union is going to be difficult.
Yes.
And is going to be expensive in terms of impact upon the economy, with a view to deterring other countries. But I've no doubt, for example, that large member states such as France, Germany, if it wished to do so, could leave the European Union and continue to trade very happily.
Yes.
You know, all very large economies, very self-contained, and able to trade with the rest of the world, which is what we want to do.
One of the advantages the UK has compared to France is that the UK still has its own currency.
Yes.
Whereas in France it's going to be complicated to...
That will be complicated. I think that the fact that France is a member of the Eurozone is going to be complicated. Yes. And that is going to be an additional problem that France will have if France ever decides to leave the EU. Yes. But again, the euro is not a very stable currency at the moment. And the impact of the euro upon certain member states, particularly the
Italy,
poorer southern
yeah,
member
exactly.
states is very significant. And if you look at what's happened to Greece, you can see that the Greek economy is still struggling to cope with the impact of membership of the euro.
Yes.
The intervention of the Brexit party, I think, is another problem. And I think that ultimately what Boris would like to see happen, and I certainly would, is to get Brexit out of the way,
Yeah.
kill off the raison d'etre of the Brexit party, and then move on to win the next general election. And I think that maybe if we were to think in terms of doing that, possibly in the early part of next year, or maybe even sooner, then he would get a good majority because he's a formidable politician. He's extremely popular, not just within the party, but also in the wider country. And I've no doubt that he would do very well and win a good election victory.
And the Tories would gain credibility again. And
for having delivered
yes.
Brexit.
What would you say to these people who are saying that you are extremists?
Well, I think quite the reverse. All that I think people who support Brexit want is to have what most countries in the world have, and that is the ability to govern themselves.
Democracy.
It is democracy, and we had a democratic vote. There was a long campaign before that vote, and ultimately the country decided it wanted to leave.
So now
in fact, it's not an extremist policy. It's the policy of the majority of the British people. That's what they voted for.
Exactly.
And I think that it's very regrettable when people who disagree with the fact that we're leaving start hurling insults and saying that we're not Democrats. We're true Democrats. We want to leave, and that is precisely what we intend to do. The French must make their own decision, but one thing they should never be scared of, and that is democracy. They should never be scared of putting their argument to the people of France and letting the people of France decide. That's what happened in this country. The people of Britain made their decision, and we trusted the people. And I think similarly, French politicians should trust the people of France.